It's not fair. How many times did we say that as kids? It's not fair. It's not fair that I have to sit here and eat my Brussels sprouts while the girl down the street has a mother who doesn't make her eat any vegetables at all. It's not fair. It's not fair that I have to sit here and do my homework when the boy next door gets to go out and play. It's not fair. There's no justice in this family. We grow up with this sense of fairness and justice, with this sense that we should all get what is coming to us. Things don't change very much when we become adults. I once knew an elderly woman. When she was coming close to 90, things started to fall apart in her body. She began to feel aches and pains after being healthy her whole long life. She said to me, "It's not fair. I have eaten so well my whole life. I've exercised. I've taken care of myself. I've done everything the doctor told me to do. It's not fair that my body is falling apart and aging. It's not fair." So many things in life are not fair. I have presided over a good number of funerals in my day. Once I buried a woman who was nearly 112 years old. But more often I have buried children who lived only a few moments in this world. It's not fair. Life is not fair. Even God doesn't seem to us to be fair. We see that so often in the sacred scriptures. We see those Pharisees, the religious people of the day, who were obeying every commandment, following all the rules. Yet Jesus comes along and tells them that prostitutes and sinners and tax collectors are going to heaven before they are. It's not fair. And then we hear that story of the prodigal son. The older son had been faithfully following all the rules all those years, yet the father goes and slaughters the fattened calf, not for him, but for the other one, the good-for-nothing son. It's not fair. We see the Pharisee and the tax collector in the temple. The Pharisee bragging about all the good works he has done. He's followed all the rules. Meanwhile, the tax collector, who had nothing to brag about, is in the back of church, just beating his breast. Guess which one had his prayers answered? That's not fair. Let's go to the foot of the cross, and there we see the only one of Jesus' male friends who did not run off in fear. The beloved disciple, the one whom Jesus loved so very much, and who loved Jesus so very much in return. What did he receive as a reward for being that good? He had to go out and labor for another 70 years or so. And meanwhile, this good-for-nothing thief on the cross next to Jesus, who probably never did a good act in his whole life, was promised to be the first one to get into paradise. It's not fair. Nothing is fair if we start looking at other people. A modern writer by the name of P.L. Reed Wallinger writes sometimes in the language of young people. One of her poems is called "If Life Was Fair, I'd Be You." Now, as we listen to a portion of that, let's pretend we are back in school speaking the students' language. "It's not fair," silly Sally sobbed as she stomped her way down the hall. "I have to do chores and feed the dog too. Life isn't fair at all." "If life was fair," lost Lori sighed, "I'd have a home and chores too. I'd have parents who'd care when I cried. If life was fair, I'd be you." "It's not fair," Picky Preston moaned as he pushed his peas round the plate. I hate vegetables, and milk is gross. This is a horrible fate. If life was fair, hungry Herb rebuked, I'd eat anything, carrots, peas, or stew. My tummy'd be full, and I'd be content. If life was fair, I'd be you. If life was fair, Fast Frank bawled, I could roam around town every night. I wouldn't have curfews or have to call home. Dude, all these rules just ain't right. If life was fair, Runaway Rhonda wailed, I could go home when it was time to. My parents would care and would ask me to call. If life was fair, I'd be you. If life was fair, Spoiled Sally bellyached, my dad would just zip his lip and get lost. He wouldn't have rules and make me do stuff. I would show him just who's boss. If life was fair, Grieving Gary wept, I'd give anything to be you. My dad died fighting in Iraq. Man, you haven't got a clue. We expect life to be fair, and we get so upset when people around us seemingly have things we don't have. Why is it that some people go through life completely healthy and strong, while other people, almost from the moment they're born, are plagued with very painful and debilitating infirmities? It just isn't fair. Then comes the story of Jesus. Those laborers had been working hard from early in the morning all through the hot day. Then these other guys show up at the end of the day, do a few minutes of work. And what does the boss give them? He gives them the same as the others. That's not fair. That goes against everything we feel, everything we have learned since childhood about fairness and justice. We should get what we deserve. Well, shouldn't we? But God, you see, does not think that way. God does not act that way. We have come to believe that a handout is a terrible thing, that everyone should get what they earn. Well, we happen to have a God who loves to give out handouts. We happen to have a God who is very unfair indeed. The contemporary theologian Friedrich Buechner has written a modern parable very similar to this one in the Gospel. He tells the story of a professor in a classroom. On the first day of school, the professor says to the students, "Your entire grade is going to be based on one difficult mathematical problem I'm going to give you all to solve. I want you to begin today to solve that problem. At the end of the semester, you will turn in your work, and I want you all to get an A." Well, now you can see this professor means business. So you go off immediately to the library, start researching and trying to figure out this problem. You work very, very hard, and you notice that you're the only one doing that. None of your classmates are. They're out playing. So you think, they will be sorry in the end. I'm the only one who's going to get an A. A month later, you're still doing your best to figure out this problem. You notice that only a few of your classmates are working too. Again, you think the others will be sorry in the end. Then comes the day when you have to turn in your assignment. And to your utter amazement, when you turn in yours, you see that everybody else in the class is turning in theirs as well. How could this be? I've been working so hard this whole time, and I know they haven't been. You hear their remarks, and you become angry. One of them says to the professor, "Thank you so much. I couldn't have done this without the help you gave me last week. What? You think? The teacher helped this guy with a problem that I've been slaving over this whole time? This isn't fair. Then another one says, thank you, teacher, because when I came to you yesterday, you helped me through this problem. And now I get it. I couldn't have done it without your help. This is really not fair. I worked so hard. And then you hear another one who says, thank you, teacher, for coming to my home last night, looking me up, seeking me out, and giving me the help I needed with this problem. I couldn't have solved it without your help. Well, this takes all. This is not fair, and you tell the teacher so. The teacher puts his arm on your shoulder and says, you were able to do this task on your own. I am so proud of you. This knowledge you've gained will go with you your whole life long. But I wanted everyone to get an A, just like I told you at the beginning. I wanted everybody to make it. If some of them needed extra help, I was only too happy to give that help. This is the kind of God we have. What we receive from God is not something we earn. Often we think of ourselves as coming to Mass every Sunday, punching in our time card, maybe getting extra credit for sitting through a long, boring sermon, and doing all these wonderful works throughout our life so that God has to pay us at the end for all the great things we have done and all the great things we have been. We imagine that at the end we go to God and say, here's my time card, here's my perfect attendance record. Now give me what you owe me, God. We think of our spiritual life as being something we work for, something we earn, something we are able to merit. And it galls us to see these other people who maybe didn't always make it to church, who maybe didn't follow all the rules all the time. What are we going to think when we see those same people getting into heaven, maybe even before we do? We have the right, I suppose, to say to God, in justice, give me what I deserve. Oh, but let's be honest. Is there any one of us who would dare say that? Who would dare to ask for what we truly deserve? Oscar Wilde had it exactly right when he said, life is never fair, and it's probably a good thing for most of us that it's not. So at the end, we can go before the throne of God and appeal to God's fairness, to God's justice, and say to God, give me what I have earned. But I think we will do much better to go with completely empty hands and appeal not to God's justice, but to God's unfair mercy, asking God to give us freely of His goodness, recognizing that we have truly done nothing on our own, and asking for a share in God's infinite mercy. And we will praise God for being so outrageously unfair.